September 1944. The rails of the Netherlands are quiet, polished, obedient. A single signal arm lowers, not with force, not with noise, but with intent. Within hours, armored divisions will be late, and men already descending from the sky will die waiting. Netherlands, September 1944. Low clouds drift over the Dutch countryside, flattening sound and muting distance. Rail lines cut through fields and canals like arteries, steel paths engineered for precision, timing, and control. Trains have ruled this landscape for decades. Coal, armor, ammunition, men, everything that feeds a modern army moves on rails. In this war, whoever controls the timetable controls the battlefield. At dawn, German logistics are operating under strain, but not panic. The Western Front has collapsed faster than expected after the Allied breakout from France, yet order still exists. Rail dispatch offices remain staffed, signal boxes are manned, switch points are logged, verified, trusted. Steel wheels continue to roll east and west, carrying the weight of a retreating empire that still believes it can react in time. Above this calm surface, the air begins to change. Far beyond the clouds, engines are forming, hundreds of them, assembling into vast airborne columns. Transport aircraft loaded with paratroopers, gliders packed with artillery, jeeps, radios, and men who have been trained to seize bridges before the enemy can destroy them. The operation unfolding is the most ambitious airborne assault of the war. Speed is its lifeblood. Timing is everything. On the ground, German commanders do not yet see the threat clearly. Intelligence reports are fragmented. Reconnaissance flights have noticed increased Allied air activity, but no decisive pattern has emerged. The assumption persists that any airborne landing would be small, localized, manageable, something that rail-moved reserves can counter within hours. That assumption rests on one fragile pillar: rail response time. In the Netherlands, roads are narrow, canals omnipresent, and heavy armor moves best by train. Panzer divisions are not positioned at the front. They are dispersed, refitting, reorganizing, waiting for orders. Their ability to intervene depends entirely on clean rail routing, signals that show green instead of red, switches that send trains down the correct line at the correct moment. Inside small, anonymous signal huts, structures designed to disappear into the landscape, men perform actions that appear trivial. Levers are pulled. Lamps change color, switches click into place. Each movement is recorded, routine, forgettable. But not all of these men are loyal. Hidden within the Dutch railway system is a silent resistance network: conductors, dispatchers, signal operators, people who understand something the occupying army does not. They know that war is not only fought with bombs and bullets, but with minutes, with delays, with uncertainty injected into systems that demand precision. As Allied aircraft begin crossing the coast, the railways below are still alive, still functioning. Yet in one place, just one, a signal will be altered. Not dramatically, not enough to raise alarms, just enough to slow a train, misroute a column, stretch a response window beyond recovery. By the time German commanders understand what has happened, the sky will already be full of parachutes, and the rails will no longer lead where they think they do. Operation Market Garden, September 1944. By early autumn, the war in Western Europe has entered a dangerous phase of acceleration. Allied armies have surged forward faster than their supply lines can comfortably support. Fuel shortages are beginning to bite. Ports remain contested. Every additional week of fighting risks stabilizing a German front that only recently appeared to be collapsing. To end the war quickly, Allied planners gamble on speed. The plan is audacious in its simplicity. Airborne forces will leapfrog deep behind enemy lines, seizing a chain of bridges across rivers and canals. Ground forces will race north, along a narrow corridor, to link up with them. If successful, the Allies will bypass heavily defended positions, cross the Rhine, and rupture Germany's last coherent defensive barrier in the West. This gamble becomes Operation Market Garden, the largest airborne operation ever attempted. The success of the plan depends on a single assumption: the German response will be slow. On paper, the enemy appears disorganized, units are scattered, many formations are under strength, fuel stocks are low, command structures are stressed. Yet this picture is deceptive. Germany still possesses something critically intact: its railway system. Across the Netherlands and Western Germany, rail lines remain the backbone of military mobility. Heavy armor cannot redeploy quickly by road alone. Panzer divisions depend on trains to move tanks, fuel, ammunition, and repair units in coordinated blocks. A delay of even a few hours can fracture a counterattack before it begins. German High Command understands this. That is why armored units recovering from earlier battles are positioned close to functioning rail hubs. It is why signal integrity is guarded, timetables enforced, and dispatchers monitored. Railways are treated not as infrastructure, but as weapons. What German commanders underestimate is the vulnerability of that system from within. For years, Dutch civilians have lived under occupation, learning to resist without open confrontation. The railway workers are among the most strategically placed. They know schedules by memory. They know which switches feed which lines. They understand where delays will cascade and where they will be absorbed unnoticed. Above all, they know how to interfere without drawing immediate suspicion. Resistance sabotage does not always involve explosives. In fact, explosions are avoided whenever possible. A destroyed bridge demands repair and alerts command. A misaligned switch does something far more dangerous. It lies. It tells the system that everything is normal. As Allied planners finalize drop zones and flight paths, resistance cells are quietly activated. No mass strikes, no dramatic gestures, just selective interference timed to moments when German reaction speed matters most. At the same time, German intelligence fails to connect the warning signs. Reports of airborne activity are filed. Some commanders grow uneasy. Others dismiss the possibility of a large-scale landing so far behind the lines. Confidence rests on the belief that rail-borne reserves can be redirected quickly if needed. That belief turns the rail network into a single point of failure. When the first parachutes open over Dutch fields, the battle will not hinge only on rifles and machine guns. It will hinge on clocks, on routing charts, on trains that should arrive and do not. And somewhere in a signal box, a lever already pulled will begin to reveal its true weight. Netherlands, September 1944. The first parachutes bloom just after midday, white canopies tearing open against a pale sky. They descend in waves, methodical, disciplined, onto fields, roads, and open farmland near bridges that have already been mapped, rehearsed, memorized. The landings are not perfect. Wind scatters units. Equipment lands wide, yet momentum favors the attackers. Within minutes, airborne troops are moving toward objectives with rehearsed urgency. On the German side, confusion spreads unevenly. Local commanders report landings. Phone lines crackle with partial information. No single headquarters sees the whole picture yet. The assumption persists that this is a limited operation, dangerous, but containable. Orders go out to mobilize nearby armored elements. Rail dispatch offices receive instructions to reroute trains carrying tanks, half-tracks, fuel cars, and infantry detachments toward threatened sectors. On paper, the response is swift. Trains are already in motion. Schedules are adjusted. Signals flip from red to green, except where they do not. On a critical junction, a signal remains closed longer than expected. A switch sends a train onto a secondary line instead of the main corridor. The delay is minor, measured in minutes, but the system is unforgiving. Trains stack behind each other. Crews wait for clearance. Dispatchers assume congestion, not sabotage. No alarms are raised. As airborne units secure initial bridgeheads, resistance stiffens unevenly. Some German defenders fight hard, and immediately. Others hesitate, awaiting reinforcements that have been promised but have not arrived. Radios transmit requests that echo unanswered longer than expected. Time stretches. Elsewhere, German armored commanders wait aboard trains that should already be rolling at speed. Engines idle. Fuel is conserved. Maps are unfolded again and again. No one yet realizes that the delay is not accidental. By the time movement resumes, the window for immediate counterattack has narrowed. Allied forces are no longer scattered men in fields. They are forming defensive perimeters, establishing roadblocks, positioning anti-tank weapons along approaches that were meant to be rushed. The first contact does not feel catastrophic. It feels slightly wrong, and that subtle wrongness is far more dangerous than panic. Hours later, as afternoon fades, the consequences of delay begin to compound. German units that should have arrived in daylight are now moving under growing Allied air presence. Roads become lethal. Columns are forced to halt, disperse, camouflage. Momentum dissolves into fragments. Airborne troops dig in faster than expected. Engineers secure bridges intact that were meant to be demolished. Each intact span magnifies the cost of German hesitation. Railway reports now show irregularities. Missed slots, trains arriving out of sequence. Dispatchers adjust, compensate, improvise. But rail systems are not designed for improvisation under fire. They are designed for precision. A single altered signal has rippled outward, forcing rescheduling, rerouting, and congestion that no individual office can fully see. The system still functions, but at reduced efficiency, just enough to fail at the worst possible moment. German commanders begin to realize that something is wrong, but not what. Sabotage is suspected only after opportunities have already passed. By then, restoring control means hours, not minutes. On the battlefield, those hours are decisive. Airborne forces, originally expected to be overwhelmed quickly, now face piecemeal attacks instead of massed counterblows. Anti-tank teams ambush isolated vehicles. Bridges hold. Supply gliders land. Radio messages shift in tone, from urgent to cautiously confident. The ground offensive racing north encounters its own delays, but the airborne troops have bought time they were never meant to have. German armor finally arrives where it can fight, but too late, and in too few numbers, against positions that have hardened beyond initial vulnerability. What should have been a rapid suppression becomes a grinding contest of attrition. The breaking point is not marked by an explosion or a decisive charge. It is marked by the realization, spreading quietly through German command channels, that the response was late, and that lateness cannot be undone. All because the rails did not deliver when they were needed most. When the operation ends, the battlefield tells a complex story. The Allied gamble does not achieve all of its strategic goals. The war does not end that season. Bridges change hands, casualties mount. History records both ambition and limitation. Yet buried beneath the larger narrative is a quieter truth. German reaction speed, once their greatest defensive strength, was blunted not by bombs or breakthroughs, but by interference. Not destruction, but misdirection. A system built on trust was betrayed by its smallest components. Post-war assessments will note unexplained delays. Dispatch records will show anomalies. Trains that arrived too late to matter. Reinforcements that missed their moment. No single document will carry the full weight of cause and effect, but the lesson endures. Modern war depends on systems, logistics, signals, schedules, routines. The more precise the system, the more vulnerable it becomes to subtle disruption. A lever pulled quietly can outweigh battalions. A signal changed without noise can alter outcomes measured in lives. In the Netherlands, long after the front has moved on, Railway lines remain. Signal boxes return to anonymity. The men who acted leave no monuments. Their victory is invisible, written only in margins of reports, and the memory of moments when the enemy arrived just a little too late. The course of the war was not changed by that signal alone, but in a conflict where minutes decide survival, it mattered enough. And that is how a war shaped by armies was briefly steered by a hand on a lever, silent, deliberate, and unseen.